ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metsa. We have a great singer-songwriter in the studio tonight. Doug Collins is a man that I'm familiar with his music, and he's always so kind and generous. He plays every time I put a benefit together, I call Doug, and he is there with bells on and always a pair of snappy shoes, I might add. So yesterday we were doing Blackie's third annual Memorial Wolf and Annie. I'm proud to announce we raised over $1,200 for Homeward Bound Dog Rescue. Doug did a great 3 or 4 song set, and I had an opening to record the show, and so Doug is here with me today. Doug, number one, thanks for playing all those benefits, and the one yesterday was just superb.
Oh, great. Well, my pleasure, Paul. That's always great to be able to do something like that.
Are you a dog guy?
I grew up with dogs, yes.
Okay.
And now I'm old and allergic to almost everything. So, but still, the love is in my heart.
Good. Well, you've got a record out there. I think you put it without in the last year called Good Sad News, Doug Collins and the Receptionist. Mm-hmm. We will find out why you call your band that in a bit. But tell us, Doug, when did you start playing and writing songs?
You know, probably mid to late teens, and then I played around for a while. I'm from Iowa originally, and
where in Iowa?
Outside of Davenport, Iowa.
Okay.
With the beautiful Quad Cities and a town called Eldridge. And I lived there, and then when I moved away, I moved to Iowa City, which is the Paris of Iowa. And from there, moved to started the band there, and then moved to Boston, and then moved up here, and then started playing, and then played for a while, and then my then wife got pregnant with our son, and then decided I'd take a break, and I took a 25-year break, and then next thing you know, here I am.
Well, that's fantastic. So how many records have you put out now in the life? This is the first one.
No, this is my 4th one. I think the first one I got out in 2013. Then we did an EP the next year, and then a full length 2 years after that, and then this in 2018 was this Good Sad News.
Davenport, Iowa, home of Bix Beiderbecke.
Yes, very much so. They have the Bix Festival, which should be coming up. It's always the last Saturday in July.
I was down there in about 1990. I saw a brilliant Bob Dylan show when he was kind of starting his never-ending tour. Was it at I want to say the Adler Theater?
Yes, wow. Yes, that's downtown.
Yeah.
That's fancy.
Yeah.
Way to go, Bob. I wish I would have known. I would have gone.
Way to go, Paul's memory for remembering that. That was
good job, Paul.
30
Good
years
job.
ago. So, Doug, what kind of music did you listen to when you were growing up?
I was just a huge Beatles fan, and any kind of river that led to and from the Beatles. That and 70s AM radio. Because I think back then, and one hates to sound like a grandparent where it's just it was better back in the day. But because there wasn't this kind of stratification about you could just listen to this, there's only 3 radio stations and they always played everything.
And it was better back in the day.
Well, yeah, sure. It was.
Well, no, I tell you what, I've said this more than once on this show. When I grew up and, started listening to the radio for sure by 1965 through the mid-70s. I mean, you could turn on the radio as a 10-year-old and hear Stevie Wonder, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Supremes, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
Yep.
And then later on, Creedence Clearwater, the band, Bob Dylan,
Right. And then, in the 70s, then, they have these ridiculous pop hits that were still super hooky and catchy, and Heaven on the Seventh Floor by Paul Nicholas, which I just heard the other day, which is just it's not a great song, but it's a great song.
Right.
It's like Elton John, all the Elton John stuff. I mean, you're hearing country music on there. That's how you get Billy Swan doing I Can Help. Something like that is on the radio, and it's just I wouldn't have been exposed to that.
Right.
Because when you're a kid, you just want to listen to the hits, and the hits back then were you had R&B, you had disco, you had pop, you had power pop, you had, R&B, you had everything. There was a whole kind of swath of things, and that's just kind of what our diet was back then.
I have way too many used CDs. I mean, we're talking 2,500, and I'm a nut for garage sales, thrift stores, and so I just bought one a couple months ago, the super hits of the 70s.
Oh, see, yeah, that stuff is gold.
Yeah, and it too transports you back in time.
Right.
know?
I mean, there's some songs that still hold up that I think are really great songs, strong songs. Like I Can Help by Billy Swan's a fabulous song. But like you're saying about stuff like this, it's like, if I hear Journey, who I'm not a huge fan of, but I will hear that song and it'll be like, it has that nostalgic itch just scratched immediately. And it's just like, because that's just music affects everyone, in different ways. And there's certain stuff that I listen to just because it's sometimes fun to feel like you're 16 again.
My favorite guilty pleasure go-to summer song since the first time I've heard it is Thunder Island by Jim Ferguson.
That's a great song. Joe Walsh plays guitar on that song.
And you know who else plays on there? Our friend Stan Kipper.
Seriously?
Stan, the percussionist, played timbales and sang harmonies on that tune.
Oh my God.
And I didn't know that till I had Stan on my radio show a few years ago. And I play with Stan.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's one of those.
That's it's super hooky. It's just like made for radio. It's got that kind of trebly, like loud thing that just kind of just cuts right through you.
And it's the kind of the tune that you remember when you were a kid and got your driver's license and you just cranked the radio.
Exactly. And there's something to be said about songs like that. I mean, and if you're, then you're able to discover when you're listening to radio stuff like that. Just like I remember hearing Joan Baez do Night They Drove Old Dixie Down.
Yeah, right.
And I didn't know who the band, that was FM. We were only listening to AM. And then all of a sudden it's just like, who's that?
Right.
And it's like these songs that people were covering, Chris Christopherson songs,
right.
Who's just like like one of the best. They weren't playing him on AM radio, but you're hearing like Sammy Smith sing, Help Me Make It Through the Night. And it's just like, what is this? And then you hear that song as an adult and it's just like, this is about as good as it gets.
Yeah, well, it's funny you should say Billy Swan and Chris Christopherson because I went out with the late, great Larry Keegan, who's a boyhood friend of Bob Dylan's. And so back in around from about 1990 through the rest of the 90s, Larry was able to get me really good tickets for Bob Dylan shows, and we'd meet at these shows. In fact, the Adler Theater in Davenport was one of them. And but we went out to see Bob Dylan at Wolf Trap Amphitheater in Vienna, Virginia, and Chris Christopherson opened, and Billy Swan was playing piano for him.
Yeah, I know that Billy Swan's like one of those cats that's just always like in the background.
Yeah.
And then he just had like those few little hits in the 70s, and it's just like, how great was that, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's just like, it seems like there's so much stuff out right now. That it's so hard to sift through. And that's it's the blessing and the curse of now. Because back then it's just like there were like kind of quote unquote guardians,
Right.
And now they're not there. But I mean, everyone, remember back in the day, like, I need to get studio time. It's so hard. We have to save up and save up and save up. And now everyone knows somebody who has a studio.
Or they're recording it on their iPhones.
Right, exactly. Exactly. I got GarageBand on my computer, and let's do that. I mean, which is great. It is great. It's the democratization of art, but I don't know if that sometimes there's just like there's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much now.
Right.
And it can be very overwhelming. I always feel like I need to have my music Sherpa to help me find my way.
That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, music Sherpa. Doug Collins, and then the other thing that we were talking with the great engineer Brett Johnson, the most handsome man in radio behind the scenes.
Thank you very much.
So true.
It is so true. Is that. Brett was saying how few CDs he buys. Now, I buy them because I just, I'm a nut for a good deal on a CD.
Right.
But there's so much, not just musically available, but there's so much in terms of just content, audio and visual, that who's got time anymore just to listen to music like we used to? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I remember spending, I would come home after school, and I have a ridiculous amount of siblings, and the only time that I could get the record player...
You're Catholic.
Can't you tell by the way I sit? Yes, I have 5 siblings, but my time was I would go home and I would play like the Beatle records, and I would play like Beatles, Velvet Underground, whatever I had,
right.
And it's just like, and I had my like 45 minutes, and I would just focus on that, and then music's it's so easy now that it's always something that you can have in the background, and you may not be able to do that, get that deep listen. And also when you're young, your focus is just incredible. I'm sure,
Yeah.
when you start playing guitar and learning how to play lead guitar, it's just like it's that whole thing of you lift up the needle and you go back.
Oh, totally.
You lift up
all
the
the
needle.
time.
I found an old cassette of mine that I had made of Mike Bloomfield stuff on Highway 61.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to a friend's house and they had a 16 on the turntable so I could do it half speed.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I
right.
taped it so I could learn how to play it at half speed. And it was still too fast for me.
No better than Mike Bloomfield. I
Oh.
went back. I went into the internet deep dive rabbit hole a couple months ago. I was reading about the Butterfield Blues
Oh,
Band.
they're like, I love those guys, especially with Bloomfield.
Yeah.
When Bloomfield and Bishop are just like off
Well,
the charts.
Bloomfield's dad, was a very wealthy
Yeah.
Chicago businessman who put out salt and pepper shakers for restaurants.
Right.
But also, I got on this rabbit hole about 4 a.m. I almost bought the Bloomfield coffee maker for $600, but I came to my senses. I'd been drinking a little Tito's vodka.
Well,
in the
sure,
morning.
sure.
Hey, we've got Dev Collins. We're going to listen to a tune, his opening track off his record, Good Sad News, Conversation with My Heart. We'll have Doug on for the whole show on the Paul Power Radio.
I gotta have a conversation with my heart. When I'm walking down the street, and someone smiles at me, why do you always skip a beat? Why do you never...
Eat fresh and support local farmers this summer by shopping at the Minneapolis Farmers Market. The market has the best selection of fresh and local fruits and vegetables, meats, and farmstead goods. Fresh at the market now, cherry tomatoes, cauliflower, broccoli, cucumbers, zucchini, beets, carrots, and even some new baby potatoes. The Minneapolis Farmers Market is open every day, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. Plus, there's additional locations Tuesday at the Hennepin County Government Center and Thursdays at Nicollet Mall. More details at mplsfarmersmarket.com.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
Visit the wine bar at Cafe Latte and enjoy a unique handcrafted pizza and glass of wine. The perfect place for an intimate night or an evening with friends. Choices range from spicy Italian sausage and sweet roasted peppers to the one-of-a-kind nacho chicken pizza layered with blue corn tortilla chips. The approachable wine list offers over 30 by the glass with special emphasis on wines from Washington State. End your night with one of Cafe Latte's melt-in-your-mouth desserts, 850 Grand Avenue, St. Paul.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces is having its annual store-wide sale. For the entire month of July, all of our indoor and outdoor fireplace products and accessories are at their lowest price of the year. At Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, we display, explain, and install the Twin Cities' most diverse selection of indoor and outdoor stoves and fireplaces, including metal and masonry pizza ovens.
I love my wood stove. We enjoy the sense of well-being we get by cutting and splitting wood to warm our home. Wood is our choice, but you may have other choices at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Whether transforming an existing fireplace or adding something new, a clean burning wood, gas, or electric fire can have you sitting pretty and cozy by the fire. Visit Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces today and find the right fire for you.
Come see us. We have over 35 working displays in our store, which is just off I-94 at the corner of Riverside and East Franklin Avenue in Minneapolis. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, since 1977, out of the ordinary products and services to make fire work for you.
Why must the world be so cold? They've gone against what was told. Thinking rape is cool, think about it. They think it's not wrong, violence against women, the rape, the abuse, the emotional, physical. They all hold the hate, think about it. Is it right or wrong? What attracts you? I'm not saying no names, but you laugh. Talk about it like nothing is wrong. Think about it. They all hold the hate. Gotta stop the violence. Stop the hate. Think about it.
Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metzger. My guest in the studio for the whole show tonight, Mr. Doug Collins. Doug, you asked me a question on the break.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. We were talking about Mike Bloomfield, who's one of my guitar heroes, great Chicago-based blues guy. And I was asking you, it's just like, well, when I was growing up, that was one of the people that I really just kind of grabbed onto. I listened to him a lot. And, of course, Clapton, etc., all that kind of blues-based stuff in the mid to late 60s. Who were you listening to when you started to play lead?
It's funny. In the mid to late 60s, I was most interested in guitar players you saw on television. Glenn Campbell.
Sure.
Chet Atkins. Jerry Reed.
Oh, Jerry Reed. Yeah.
And then you would see, you'd occasionally catch B.B. King on the Johnny Carson show. Mm-hmm. Or Hendrix. So I was really started out playing acoustic guitar.
Yep.
But I had a teacher named Dennis Monroe, fabulous teacher and musician himself, who ended up in Rochester, New York, and became a mentor to hundreds of musicians out there. But he taught me how to finger pick, and he gave me a copy, this would have been about 1968, of the New Lost City Ramblers songbook.
Sure. Uh-huh.
I have no idea how he got that, but he turned me on to Gordon Lightfoot, of course, Bob Dylan, and then, like we were talking earlier, Doug Collins, about 1960s radio. But then when you started to hear Bob Dylan, then you started to hear Mike Bloomfield.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's how I was introduced to him, because just like, I think we all have that moment where it's just like, at least in my generation, Dylan was kind of like just barely older enough that he wasn't played on AM radio, is what I'm saying. And then all of a sudden, you hear, like, I remember the first song I think I knew by him was To Serve Somebody. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, that's okay. But I heard he's supposed to be good, and you keep going back. And he's just like, just that treasure trove of Dylan stuff. And then hearing, like, Tombstone Blues off of Highway 61 Revisited, there's just this stinging Telecaster leads throughout the whole thing by Bloomfield. And I was just like, I remember trying to learn how to play that. Some older musician, I was showing him, like, oh, yeah, I think I got this. Just like, you're supposed to bend the strings.
Right.
And then, it's just like, it's those little moments that you remember. It's just like, in Bloomfield then set me down that thing where, like you said, listen to B.B. King all of a sudden. It's just like listening to Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, all those chess guys. It's just like, and everyone has their door to get into great music. I'm just so happy that I was, like, able to do that. And it was also very easy to get super cheap vinyl at that time.
Yeah. People
weren't buying a lot of, like, blues stuff, like getting a whole bunch of old, like, Buddy Guy and, Junior Wells stuff as well. It's just like, that stuff still is just, it's fine wine is what it is. It's beautiful.
It's funny. I was reading I get the Mesaba Daily News, which is my hometown newspaper from Virginia, Minnesota, online. And they did an article about the 50th anniversary of L&M Supply, which was still is a hardware store. You can get any kind of hardware stuff, tires. But back in the day, they used to have a record section. And so when I was in 8th grade, I remember I bought After the Gold Rush by Neil Young.
Nice.
Which is still one of my all-time favorite
that's a fabulous
records. Not just of Neil Young's, just of anybody's.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he is just starting to peak right there. He just kind of found out, I think, who he was as an artist on that record.
But just to be able to buy those records right next to the tire section was incredible.
And that's like back in the day. That's how it was. I mean, I remember going to Iowa City, like I said, which was an hour from home, and it's a college town, but going there and just like realizing people knew who the Velvet Underground were.
Right.
And that was like one of my favorite bands, which I found out, through like Rolling Stone or something. And somehow rather in Eldridge, Iowa, there weren't a lot of Lou Reed fans.
Right.
And going up there and then all of a sudden just like, oh, you like these guys? You would like this.
Right.
You would like this. And then hanging out in record stores, and it's just like,
that was the beauty of record stores, was that you'd learn a lot from not only the clerks, but the people that were shopping there.
Right.
I remember going to see Dave Ray, who was a great friend of mine, and I'd see him at the Electric Fetus, and he would literally go down row after row, and he had a clipboard, a pen, and he would have his bifocals, and he would go through his list of records he was either looking for or might have had second editions. In fact, when Dave passed in, I believe it was 2001. My God, it's hard to believe it was that long ago. But I bought a lot of his records. His wife, MJ, put them up for sale. And I bought his copy of Surrealistic Pillow by the Jefferson Airplane that said J. David Ray on the back. He signed, he had, like I did.
Yeah.
I always put my name on my records.
Sure.
And I always wanted to give it to Jorma Kaukonen, who's a friend of mine, the guitar player from the Airplane. But for some reason, it got damaged. But anyway, I still have...
Oh, that's great.
Another 40 records with Dave Ray's signature on the back.
Sure, because I remember like going into the store and that someone was talking about, we were talking about blues guitar players, which is something I was fascinated with at that time. And somebody said, oh, Fleetwood Mac. And I was just like, I just knew rumors.
Right.
As every person in America does. And then somebody said, oh, no, have you heard Peter Green?
Right.
And then that opened something else up because, all that stuff with all the Fleetwood Mac recordings with Peter Green are just fabulous. And how else do you find this stuff out?
What was the very first record you bought? Do you remember?
The first record I ever bought, I think that I remember is spending 99 cents at Turnstile for the 45 of Rock the Boat by the Hughes Corporation. Which, talk about summer songs. That song still always gets my groove going.
Well, it is summertime. So what other summer songs from back in the day do you remember?
Yeah. To me, it's for some reason it always veers to the cheesy. I remember Chuck Mangione, Feels So Good. And God, what else? I think Debbie Boone, even though I don't even know if that time of year is right, but You Light Up My Life. It's just like those all kind of run together.
Plus, you had a crush on her.
Well, yeah. Of course I did. I'm not made of stone, Paul. Yeah, of course I did. And that's, and that's what we were listening to. And I tell the story when we were kids at Casey Kasem's American Top 40. It was that was like a great way to hear all these songs that you didn't, if you missed them on the radio. And we would, after Mass, we would go see my grandparents and we would ask my dad for the keys to listen to the car. And we turned it on one time and then forgot to turn it off. And then we couldn't leave because we had worn down the battery listening to Casey Kasem. My dad was not very happy about that, but we had a good time.
Funny. We've got Doug Collins on. Tell us a little bit about, in 30 seconds or less, the track we're going to hear, Please Don't Make Me Leave You.
I was playing around with some chords and just fascinated by... like Roy Orbison and late period Elvis and Ray Price, people like that big voice singers that my mom kind of like, Johnny Ray, and kind of wanted to do a different take or my kind of take on something like that. So that was just kind of my experiment to try and do that.
Doug Collins, Please Don't Make Me Leave You, from his record, So Sad News. We'll have Doug on for the whole show tonight on the Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Make me leave you, 'cause I could never let you go. It's easy to see how much you hurt me, but my heart keeps telling me I'm wrong. After all of this time, you think that I'd know why. I'm the one who loves you so.
The number one source of the Twin Cities gay scene is all digital. Follow Twin Cities Gay Scene on Facebook and Twitter. Sign up for the Scene Shot email blast for weekly updates and chances to win great prizes. No app is needed to view the bi-weekly web editions of Scene. It's GLBTQ media for the mobile generation. Find it all at TwinCitiesGayScene.com. That's TwinCitiesGayScene.com.
This is New Beginnings, hosted by award-winning broadcaster and speaker Freddie Bell.
Freddie, this generation of the baby boomers, people are living longer, so the baby boomers are taking care of elderly parents.
Let's talk about your health, and specifically, let's talk about Medicare. Our show features the concerns of America's 78 million baby boomers in employment, finance, health and nutrition, and even entertainment.
Catch New Beginnings with Freddie Bell, Saturdays at 11 on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association and Powderhorn Park are thrilled to invite you to the Powderhorn Art Fair. Shop hundreds of local and regional artists on serene Powderhorn Lake. Taste foods from local food trucks and enjoy exploring the Powderhorn community. Considered the best regionally juried art fair for nearly 3 decades, it takes place right in South Minneapolis in picture-perfect Powderhorn Park. The Powderhorn Park Art Fair begins Saturday, August 3rd and runs through Sunday, August 4th. Join the fun from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. The success of the art fair comes from Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association's long-standing collaboration with the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, and a portion of the proceeds support youth programming at Powderhorn Park. There'll be over 200 artists, 20 food trucks, and great fun at Powderhorn Park. The Powderhorn Park Art Fair begins Saturday, August 3rd and runs through Sunday, August 4th. For more information on the art fair, go to ppna.org. That's ppna.org. Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Not only does Rudy Luther Toyota have a great selection of new vehicles, but Rudy Luther is also one of the largest volume Toyota certified used vehicle dealers in the country. They have better prices than many non-certified dealers. They offer the 7-year, 100,000-mile warranty, feature incredibly low interest rates, and all their vehicles go through a comprehensive inspection and reconditioning process. And they pay top dollar for your trade-in, even if you don't buy from them. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Sam Turnberg. Tonight's mostly cloudy with a low around 62. Tomorrow, increasing clouds with a high near 79. Monday, sunny with a high near 78. Tuesday, sunny with a high near 81. And Wednesday, sunny with a high near 82. We've had some strong storms with damaging hail come through the Twin Cities recently. Trust the locally owned Snap Construction for a free, thorough property inspection. Their staff knows the process well and has handled thousands of insurance claims. Free inspection 612-333-SNAP or check them out online at snapconstruction.com.
Saw you dancing. It was beautiful to see. I saw you dancing, but it wasn't with me. I saw you moving slow across the floor. I saw you moving, reminding me of before. I don't know if you love me. That was so long ago.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metz, and my guest in the studio for the whole show tonight, singer, songwriter, and cool cat Doug Collins. We're listening to songs off his, no problem, man. I dig your thing. Called Good Sad News. We just heard opening up I Saw You Dancing. So, Doug, you play acoustic like you did yesterday at Blackie's Memorial Wolfenany. You also have a band, The Receptionist.
Yes, I do.
Where did you get that name, The Receptionist?
Well, I had not been playing for a while and just playing in cover bands. I just started to kind of get out again. And then a friend of mine got married. And he said, do you want to play at our reception? And my day job is a receptionist. So I said, well, why don't we call the band The Receptionists?
There you go.
And it just stuck. So and then I started playing original music, and then my name went in front, and then it's just, that's where it came from.
Where around town do you play? You play at quite a few places.
Yeah, everywhere from, Turf Club, 331, Palmer. We have something coming up at Palmer's. We're playing at Parkway sometime soon. I try and get out, and then I also try and get on the road a lot, as you know.
Well, you just got back from Spain.
I did. In February, we were in, I went over with Spain with the guy who produced the record, Rob Genetic, and we did an 8-9 day tour over there.
Nice.
It was great.
Just the two of you?
Just the two of us. I bought I just had a Telecaster and a pedal board, and he bought this really tiny drum kit. So it was just both of us, so he could plug it into the PA, so we didn't have to travel with it a lot of stuff. We just could.
Right.
And that made it was great. And Spain was wonderful. Have you been?
No, I never have. But my friend Willie Walker is actually headlining a festival in Italy this week.
Oh, nice.
Was just in Spain a couple years ago. He said it was one of his favorite places to play.
It is. I mean, the thing is, we're ridiculously spoiled here in the Twin Cities. I mean, you throw a rock, you're going to hit somebody who's seriously talented. And you can go out every night of the week and see music and see good music. And over there, I don't know if it's different or not, but they really seem to like the American style, rock and roll, country, whatever, that Americana stuff. And over there, it was just, we were just treated like gold. It was just, it was wonderful. We got radio play. We got a lot of press. We got, the record got voted like the Rolling Stone of Spain voted it one of the top 3 Americana releases of the year.
Oh, rock!
Yeah, so that was. It's one of those things where it's just like, I don't know, it all came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I had gotten a request from a record store in Madrid to ask for some records, and so I sent some over there, and Rob Janiak said we should tour there, and I said okay.
Right.
And then we started doing stuff, and then next thing I know, I got a promoter contacted us and helped us out. So we played over there, and then right now we're trying to get back over there to Spain, and then hopefully some other places in Europe, like in Scandinavia, where I would like to get over as well.
So what were the gigs like there in Spain?
It was interesting. They were like there were small rooms. A lot of 2 or 3 of the places we played reminded me a lot of 7th Street Entry. Just kind of those smaller rock clubs. It was funny too, because we went into one place, we played in Lisbon, and we were in there, and I was just like, there's something here that smells really familiar, and it's not right. They can smoke inside in Lisbon. And so it was just like, they just brought back memories of just like being in a rock club. It smells of spilled stale beer and cigarette smoke.
Right.
And so it was just great. I felt like I was at home. And
I've got guitars in my closet that still smell like that.
Yeah, it's just, and so played clubs like that. We played a couple listening rooms, and then it was basically kind of a cross between those kind of things.
Did you speak any Spanish? Or were they pretty fluent in English?
They said they weren't fluent, and if I could speak Spanish as badly as they speak English, I'd be fluent. Because they were just like, oh, I'm really sorry I'm not speaking this, and I'm just like, hola. Mi llama es, I'm terrible at it. I have like 9th grade Spanish, which is like 40 years ago. Right. So, but after a few drinks, I got a lot more confident, I'll say that. But no, my Spanish is muy mal.
So I'm just picturing if Paul Metz ever goes to Spain, which I'd love to do. So how long of drives between the gigs?
Well, and that's one thing that I would do again. We flew into Madrid and then went to Lisbon, which is like 6 hours away, and then drove around and came back to play in Madrid. So we ended up doing in the 9 days, we did 2,200 miles plus in a car. If I could do it again, I would stay in like maybe Madrid or, because then there's high-speed rail.
Right.
And you can go down to, we played in Bilbao, which is north, which was gorgeous and great. And then we also played down in Barcelona, which is south. We played in a place called Zaragoza, which was like in between those. And if you do it that way, it's very easy and very, very doable. We rented a car just because we could. But it's also like we drove one place and it was like, oh, here's the toll road. And we're like, oh, this is fine. This is great, a toll road. And it was super, super nice, clean, blah, blah, blah. And so we pull off and it's just like, oh, I wonder what it's going to be for a toll. Like, $5, $10. It was $70.
Wow.
So it was just like, there's a reason those roads are clean because they have the money for it. But I think next time I would like to do it again, you could take trains and not even have to worry about anything like that, especially if you're going solo.
Right. So were you able to sell your CDs at the gigs?
Yes. And like we were saying earlier, like not CDs are kind of like, we make them as artists because it's like, I always say I'm Johnny Appleseed. I'm throwing those seeds out, and
they're a business card too.
Yes, exactly. All my information's always on it. And, but for them, I would stay afterwards and, I probably sold, 10 to 15 a gig.
Nice.
I know. And I mean, I'm used to selling 10 to 15 a year,
Right.
here in the States. So it was just like.
Well, like I say, Doug Collins, I say, and I've been, I've got 12 original releases out over the years. I go, they've all gone linoleum. A lot of people ask, what does linoleum mean? And I said, that means it's been bought by someone other than a blood relative.
See? That, well, honestly, we all have, and we know how much everything has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, even from 10 years ago, but back, the thing was also like, we always wanted to get signed.
Yeah.
We always wanted to get signed because that's how you get the hit.
Right.
And now it's just like, that's just not how it's set up.
Right.
And so be it. I mean, it's not, if this is the world we live in, this is the world we live in.
Yeah, and in my case, I've never really sold enough records to worry about whether or not the music business is crashing.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, no matter what, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I did, like I said earlier on, like I was doing this and then I didn't do it. And I was thinking like, oh, I'm fine with not doing it. But when you don't do it, then when you get back to doing it, you're realizing like, why wasn't I doing this the whole time? Because it's not about, who doesn't want, we all want money. We all want people to like give us, feedback, justification for our work, and they had a connection. But we're going to do it regardless.
Well, I had actually taped for my TV show, Wall of Power TV, a great interview a couple of weeks ago backstage with my old friend Alejandro Escovedo.
Oh, uh-huh.
And who has been touring for 40 years.
Yeah.
And he said this is going to be his last tour. He just can't afford it
anymore.
And, I've never achieved any sort of that acclaim or stardom that a guy like Alejandro has, or a lot of other people. But I was thinking about it the other day. I bought my house with my guitar. I've got my dog. I've got my in-town gigs. I said, I in a way, I measure success for not having to go on the road.
Right. No, and that's great. I mean, I have to have a day job. 10 years ago, I knew people who were full-time musicians, and that has dwindled significantly.
Yeah.
And the people who I know who are full-time musicians now, most of the time, do that by either teach or they're in cover bands.
Yeah.
And, just having like an original music career like that.
Right.
Unless you have like some kind of weird fluke hit, it's not something that happens as often anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's just, part of the thing about recording is it's your archive. It's your artistic archive.
Right.
So I can go back. I put out my first record with Cats on the Stars in 1982, my first album under my own name in 84, and I go back and listen to the growth. Or in some ways I go back and go, damn, I sound better 15 years ago than I do now.
Well, and then it's also like I was going to a gig and I had to pull out my first record because I was just like, oh, here's a song we said we were going to do. I haven't listened to it for a while.
And then
right, exactly. So I was listening to it and I was just like, well, that sounds different than I remember, because you're so used to playing it live and it takes on its own.
Yeah, it evolves.
Right. And then you hear this, and then also I hear somebody who's just like, your voice sounds different. The song means something different to you after you play it. A friend of ours, James Loney, always told me that it's just like you shouldn't record a song unless you play it out live for like a year.
He's got a point.
He's got a point. Because, there's
the
also...
Velvet James Loney, the great The Velvet Troubadour.
Yes, I love James Loney. He's one of my all-time favorite people.
You ask James, I'm going to brag a little bit.
Yes.
I helped James. I heard him in the 80s. He's a good friend of my friend, Billy Alcorn's. And I heard him in his band. I think the band was called the Velvet Troubadours. And then he did some things, got kind of out of the biz.
Right.
And then he did a couple open stages I was doing at Nias, and I encouraged him to get back into doing it.
Yeah.
And I just love his voice.
Yes, I love his voice. I love his songs. He always has all of his songs sound like him.
Yeah.
Which is I think is hard. A lot of times as an artist, we can get lost in that. But he makes his band sound like those songs are supposed to sound, which to me is a tip of the hat.
And speaking of songs, we're going to listen to Hey Mary. We've got our guest, Doug Collins, on for the whole show tonight. We've got some great players on this. Doug Collins, Billy Dankert, Dan Newton, Jeff Victor, and Joe Savage. We're going to listen to Hey Mary and then be back for one more set with great Doug Collins on the Wall of Power.
All right. We both sit here wondering if we have made a mistake. Hey Mary, sorry it's true. It's not about me and it's really all up to you. Will all of our dreams be gone? Or will this be the life that we wanted all along?
Prairie Oaks Memorial Eco Gardens is the first green cemetery in Minnesota. It's a beautiful, peaceful place where burials are celebrations of life with as little impact on the environment as possible. Tony Weber founded it because he wants to leave a green legacy for his grandchildren, something many of us might feel. Learn more, visit the website mngreengraves.com. Give them a call. The goal is so meaningful, so positive, it might be right for you. Prairie Oaks Memorial Eco Gardens.
I'm Candy Brothel, publisher of the Twin Cities edition of Natural Awakenings magazine and host of Green Tea Conversations, a news show for people who are on a journey to take responsibility for their health and play a more active role in their family's well-being. Join me every Sunday at 10 a.m. as I interview local experts who share the latest in natural holistic approaches in a fun and informative way. So grab a cup of tea and join the conversation as we awaken to natural health. Visit us at naturaltwincities.com.
Northeast Minneapolis is known for its creativity, and you'll know exactly why when you eat at Hazel's Northeast. Their creatively prepared comfort food will have you coming back week after week. Breakfasts like biscuits and gravy, granola pancakes, and brisket hash. For lunch, homemade soup and one of the best Reubens in town. And don't miss the daily risotto or Chef Ali's ever-changing dinner specials. Come on in, bring the whole family. Hazel's Northeast delivers real good food. Family owned at 29th and Johnson in Minneapolis.
Hi, this is Chad from AM 950. Snap Construction is arguably the most well-reviewed roofing, siding, window, and insulation contractor in the metro. Ryan is so excited about working with AM 950 and our listeners that he wants to help us grow.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. I was friends with Chad long before I started marketing with him. I was a bit skeptical of radio advertising before Chad convinced us to run ads. The advertising's been so successful, we want to help the station grow. We've absolutely loved working with the listeners of AM 950, and we all know how extremely important this radio station is to the community. To help AM 950 grow this summer, Snap Construction will be putting up proceeds to assist the station in marketing on social media. Snap Construction encourages you to follow, engage, share, and interact on the AM 950 social media platforms. Together, we can all work to ensure AM 950 continues to thrive and grow in our communities. We stand by our work with a lifetime craftsmanship guarantee. For a free estimate or more information on our financing, call 612-333-SNAP or check us out online.
Hello, humans. This is me, Ellie Krug, with Ellie 2.0 Radio on Monday mornings from 7 to 8 a.m. I'm an idealist working to change the world. My show, Ellie 2.0 Radio, highlights other past and present idealists and the incredible things humans can do when we work for the greater good. You remember that idea about the greater good, right? I've got a vision of a better world where everyone has a place at the table. Listen every Monday from 7 to 8 a.m. and be inspired on AM 950.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Metsa. You're listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We just heard Crush on You by my guest, Doug Collins. Tell us a little bit about that tune.
It's one that I always say, getting older and, I was single when I wrote it, and it was just, I had been divorced for a while. And you think when you're older, the human heart is you're going to be hardened and toughened.
Right.
But I always say it's the only organ that doesn't age because
Right.
you still hurt as much as you do when you're then. This is just like having one of those, like a little myriad of crushes one gets throughout their lives. It's
Yeah.
just like, and it's still like, it doesn't change. You still feel like a teenager. You know, the heart hurts the same way and yearns the same way. It's just like you just see it through a different prism.
I went to see a great movie about the spy who played Catcher at the Edina Theater, about this phenomenal. Oh, you got to see it.
Right, I've heard about it.
This guy Moberg, who
Yep.
was a professional baseball player, but was also spoke 12 languages, and was also undercover for the OSS.
Right.
While he was a baseball player. Phenomenal story. But they had the upcoming previews from Marianne and Leonard about the lifelong love affair with Marianne, who Leonard Cohen wrote the song about. And Leonard. And
I am very interested about that.
it looks so good because we're both Leonard Cohen fans.
Right. I mean, that guy is just like, I always say he's like a diamond cutter.
Yeah.
Because just like everything's in the exact place. Because I mean, I am not like that.
Yeah.
I can be sloppy as the Dickens. But
Right.
every rhyme is perfect. Every beat is exactly where it should be.
Right.
And the way he presents it, it's always just like, he's just like one of those guys that he could have been born 1,000 years ago or now, and his talent would still be.
He is the guard in the Tower of Song. Right?
He
At the
really
very
is.
top floor of
Right.
the Tower of Song. But it talks about how she was such a muse from him when they were in Hydra on the island in Greece.
Yeah.
But then how they never really left each other's romantic orbit, even though they were out of touch. And then there's a great letter that Leonard wrote just a few days before she passed, and he passed not long after that, and said something at "Hold out your hand, I'll be there right behind you."
God, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's just looks like an amazing movie.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I just had read something about that, and like, of course, you know, I'll watch any music documentary, anything about anything, even people I don't like, I'll be all over.
I'll give a little plug to the Landmark Theater chain because that will be. I asked them when it will be showing July 26th at the Uptown Theater.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Yes, all right, a week.
So, Doug Collins, so who are some of your other inspirations as songwriters?
You know, I think for me, it's always like this kind of, like I said, Beatles are always like hook. I love those guys and how they sing and how they put everything together. But like other songwriters are just like, you know, Hank Williams, you know, how, you know, you're singing, you know, that Leonard Cohen song, you know, how lonely does it get? You know, Hank Williams hasn't answered me yet. Just like he he says more in, you know, Take These Chains From My Heart than most singers can get in a whole career. He's just so, you know, Chris Christopherson we were talking about.
The moon went behind the clouds to hide his face. Hank Williams.
Listen to that.
Yeah.
And, you know, Chris...
And wrote all those tunes by the time he was 29.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, right, I know, yeah.
That just makes me like, you know, I remember being a kid and like playing in bands and I had turned 25 and my friend said, well, you're the same age as Keith Richards when he did Beggar's Banquet. And I was just like, well, great.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
But Hank Williams, I mean, I think Chris Christopherson at one point was just, you know, he has all these songs about like relationships ending and just like the power of like companionship in moments that, you know, it shouldn't be, but you have to take your solace where you can.
Right.
I mean, just like that's beautiful. And Dylan, of course, he covers everything. Right. You know, I mean, he's just, you know, he's Bob Dylan. There's a reason that he's Bob Dylan, you know.
Right.
He can do anything. And then there's like, you know, Smokey Robinson is just one of my absolute favorite people of all time.
And one of Dylan's favorites.
Yeah, the poet, you know, America's greatest poet was Smokey Robinson. He's, you know, Tears of a Clown is like, that's as good as it gets, you know, Stevie Wonder, you know, all those, I think of like people like Elvis Presley and who I like, you know, Beatles, Dylan, are the people that are always listening to, have this huge swath of people that they listen to.
Right.
And that's why I think that like part of the reason that why they're all so good. I mean, when you hear Elvis Presley sing, you hear like blues, you hear country, you hear like Dean Martin in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's how, and then he makes it his own.
Right.
And that's the stuff that I think is just, fascinating.
There's that great story about conversation that Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen had, and Bob asked him, how long did it take you to write Hallelujah? And Leonard said 2 years, and Leonard asked him, how long did it take you to write whatever the song was? And Bob said 15 minutes.
Well, that's why he can do it. I mean, it's just like he can do, especially those times, where it's just like his stuff was really super verbose, the early stuff. Like Bringing It All Back Home and, the trilogy of albums ended in Blonde and Blonde, Highway 61. It's just like, how could he write lines like that? Right. I mean, I think we've all tried to do that. And I always say Bob Dylan is the best and worst thing that happened to music, is because he did that and it's incredible. And the problem is like most people then try and do that and they don't realize that they can't write like that.
Well, I think Hank Williams had that great line. He said, how do you come up with these beautiful songs? And he said, I grab the pen and put it to paper and God moves my hand.
So, I mean, I can't say enough great things about how true everything Hank Williams says is.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, the way he sings it, it's just like, it's very, very, and I strive for that. I mean, I think other people that I admire strive for just simplicity, pare it down. And the older I get, the less I write. I try not to use like or as in songs anymore. It's just like, these are just declarative sentences and how you try and capture that moment. And, knock on wood, maybe I have gotten a line or two right. But that's all you can do, is you can listen to the greats and try and be one yourself.
Doug Collins, you got any gigs coming up? And what is your website?
My website is www.dougcollinsmusic.com. And I have gigs coming up. And I wish off the top of my head I knew where they at.
Just go to your website.
Just go to my website. On the yes, I am playing some, and for the life of me, I'm totally blanking right now. But I do have gigs coming up, and there's always something. So please check out my website, listen to my music. I'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. The show was produced by Paul Metsa, engineered by the great Brett Johnson, recorded in the basement of AM 950 in Eden Prairie, which is neither Eden nor Prairie. Follow me at paulmetsa.com. I've got a TV show called Wall and Power TV on Comcast Channel 6, Saturday nights at 8 and 11:30 p.m. Thanks for being a supporter of the radio show. If you have an event coming up, you're a business, you want to advertise to a voracious audience, get a hold of us at am950radio.com. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.